I want you to imagine something with me. You have a box in front of you. Inside that box are hundreds of tiles. Each one has a single letter on it. Every letter of the alphabet mixed together completely at random. And your task is this: reach into the box, pull out a tile, and place whatever letter you get onto the page. You don't get to choose. Whatever comes out must go onto the page. Now, using only that method, do you think you could write a book this thick? Could you write a chapter, a paragraph, or even a single sentence that made sense? What about just one word? Most of us immediately feel, intuitively, that the answer is no. That meaning doesn't come from randomness, that words, language, require intention. They require a mind behind them. And here's what's remarkable. In 2025, a professor at Imperial College London, one of the most respected research universities in the world, essentially used advanced mathematics to prove what you just felt in your gut. His name is Robert Endres. He's a biophysicist. And what he discovered using the tools of information theory and algorithmic complexity is that even the simplest living cell contains so much structured, precise, and functional information that the odds of it assembling itself by chance, randomly, and without direction are not just small, they are mathematically impossible. To understand what Professor Endres discovered, you first need to understand what DNA actually is. DNA is a language, not a metaphor for a language, not something that resembles a language. It is, by every functional definition, a real language with an alphabet, a grammar, and the ability to encode, store, and transmit complex instructions. The alphabet of DNA has 4 letters: adenine, thymine, cytosine, and guanine, abbreviated A, T, C, and G. These 4 letters are arranged in sequences along the DNA strand, and those sequences encode instructions. Instructions for building proteins, regulating cellular functions, timing biological processes, and coordinating the activity of trillions of cells across a lifetime. The human genome contains approximately 3 billion of these pairs. If you were to print the human genome as a book, it would fill roughly 1,000 volumes of an encyclopedia. Every single cell in your body, every one of the approximately 37 trillion cells, contains a full copy of this entire library. Now, here's the critical question. Where did this language come from? This is where Professor Endres enters the picture. He is not a theologian. He has no religious agenda. He is a scientist applying rigorous mathematics to a biological question. When Professor Endres applied these tools to the simplest known living cell, not a human cell, but something like a minimal bacterium, what he found was enlightening. The information content required for even this minimal cell to function is extraordinarily high, and the probability that this level of structured, functional information could assemble itself randomly through undirected chemical reactions is not just low, it is mathematically impossible. His analogy is exactly what we went through at the start of the video. Professor Endres compared it to trying to write a coherent article by randomly throwing letters at a page. If the article only needs to be 1 word long, you might get lucky eventually. But as the length required, the required complexity increases, the probability of success doesn't just decrease linearly. It collapses exponentially. At a certain point, you could run the experiment for longer than the age of the universe and still not expect a coherent sentence, let alone a a functioning genome. And the simplest living cell is not a sentence. It is, informationally speaking, closer to an entire library. Professor Endres concludes that we may need to discover entirely new physical principles to explain how life arose naturally. The existing chemical models, the one we have had, are simply not sufficient to account for the information content of even the most primitive life. That is a remarkable admission from a mainstream scientist at a top research institution. The psalmist wrote, "Your eyes saw my unformed body. All the days ordained for me were written in your book before one of them came to be." Psalm 139:16. Written before one of them came to be. There is a reason that language, the language of authorship, of inscription, of a word preceding its fulfillment, keeps appearing in Scripture when it speaks about how we are made, because it is accurate. The cell is not an accident. You are not an accident. The information encoded in your genome, the instructions for building new tissue, for every organ, every neural pathway that makes you, you, was not assembled by chance. It was authored. The code is there, the complexity is there, and the language is there. And languages don't write themselves. May we have eyes to see it, and may the God who wrote it all draw us closer to himself.